And we begin with breaking news. The federal government planning to give a $1 million recovery grant to Santa Fe ISD.
And this comes as President Trump makes his way across Texas. Marcelino Benito now explaining how the president addresses the issue of school safety during his stop in Houston. Marcelino.
Guys, that meeting between Santa Fe High students, families, victims, and the President of the United States went on earlier today. It was closed to our cameras, the media not allowed inside. But tonight I can tell you, thanks to our partners at the Galveston Daily News, that the President did vow to improve school safety by making sure federal money is available. Air Force One touched down in Houston just before 11 this morning. Minutes later, President Trump emerged from the plane with his trademark presidential fist bump. Dozens of cheering supporters awaiting on the tarmac. Governor Greg Abbott, Lieutenant Governor Dan Patrick, and Senator Ted Cruz, all part of the Texas delegation waiting to greet him at Ellington Field. The president spent several minutes speaking with Texas leaders on the tarmac before waving at the crowd and getting into his limo. The president's first stop in Houston, just a hangar over from Air Force One. President Trump walked into a private meeting with families, those personally impacted by the shooting in Santa Fe, and first responders. That meeting was closed to the press at the request of the families. Originally scheduled for 50 minutes, the meeting lasted for more than an hour. President Trump chose not to address reporters as he walked out, only waving before boarding the motorcade and heading into Houston. The president also reportedly asked some of those victims, some of those students from Santa Fe High, what they thought, why they thought they were shot, and why they thought this shooting happened in the first place. We'll have more on the president's visit coming up tonight at 5. Guys, back to you.